So, Ava, can you tell me about how your family came to be in Syria?
Yes, of course. Hello. Just to give everyone watching and reading this an outline of what I'm going to be talking about in terms of stories, I'm going to be talking about four branches of my family. And starting with my dad's side, my grandmother from my dad's side has not been a survivor herself, but her grandmother, so my dad's grandmother, or my great grandmother, if that makes sense, has been a survivor. And oh wait, no, that's not my great grandmother, is it? Yeah. Oh, anyways, my dad's grandmother has no, that's not true. My dad's great grandmother. Okay, got it. My dad's great grandmother has been a survivor, and they were from Marash, and they went from Marash to Iskenderun, and from Iskenderun to Aleppo. And we have the kind of the juicy, quote unquote juicy, side of the story here from the survival stories in our family. It's so the story goes this way from what we know and what we've heard, me and my brother. So my grandma's grandmother was on her way during the march to whatever city they were directed to, and my grandmother's grandmother's sister was with her, and they were twins actually, and one of them was kidnapped during the march, and like they didn't find her afterwards. Like she got lost. They didn't have any sort of communication, and later on, I don't exactly know how many years later. It was probably like decades after. When they were in Syria, like my grandmother remembers this, like she was alive, so the story there kind of is they have this tailor that comes to their house and like does their clothing or it suits their whatever they need for any occasions, this tailor is like pretty known in the region and not in just in Syria. So he goes back and forth between Syria, Lebanon, maybe even Jordan. I think I'm not completely sure, but definitely between Syria and Lebanon. And he basically works for this family in Lebanon, a Muslim family actually. That is that yeah they told us that they've been very rich. We don't know. So this tailor works there as well, and because he knows like my grandma's side of the family and he knows the members, and because the sisters are twins that they got separated, he like sees the mother of the other Muslim family that he goes to and works for in Lebanon, and he's just like, these two women are completely like they're very similar. This is yeah, they're like he's like this. There has to be some sort of a connection there, and he goes back and he asks questions like, do you know, like, do you have a sister? What's your background? How did you come here? Blah blah blah. And he's like, okay, if this is the story, like she's been kidnapped or you've lost her on your way to Syria, then I think I've seen someone that might have been her. Or is her rather, and she. So at first they're like, no way, this is like, forget about it, Muslim family, no way, small detail here as well. I think they've told us, like my grandma told us, that they might have been a Durzi family. I don't want to like offend anyone by saying Muslim and then they're Durzi, because it's a bit of an issue for them, I think. At first they're like, no, forget about it. This, like, we're not gonna pursue this, whatever. And they after years after, I think someone from the family goes to Lebanon and just to see whether it truly is a sister or not, and it turns out it is. And like they reconnect, and my grandma remembers this, and there's from what I know, and I just asked this to my brother just to have the info and details correct, and he said there was some sort of a stigma going on there because like she was part of a Muslim family now, and they were like, no, we don't have a Muslim sister, you know, we that's not something we want to accept. Again, not entirely sure of how much of this is true or to what extent. But yeah, so we've heard this sort of ideology, I guess, or perception of the story, and yeah, so this is how they found each other, and they have been in touch after that incident, and I mean, obviously everyone has an expiration date, unfortunately, and yeah, it's so that's the
What were their names?
fun.
Do you know any of their names?
I know my grandma's mother's name, Alice, but I don't know any other names from that story.
Do you know what her last name is?
Jahizian. Yeah, well, my grandma was Jahizian, so probably my grandma's mother was not. Yeah, so no, I couldn't remember. So that's one side, that's one branch covered. We don't have stories like this on for the other branches, unfortunately. But so again, from my dad's side, we have my grandpa. My grandpa only remembers his father, and his father was a survivor. Well, that makes us kind of like a fourth generation survivor, if you may, like myself and my siblings, and a fifth generation survivor from my grandma's side, which is kind of coincidentally the same from the other branches as well, the same fourth and fifth kind of mix. So my dad's grandfather from his dad's side was a survivor, and he was from Kharpert, and from Kharpert he went on to settle in Qamishli in Syria, and from Qamishli my own grandpa actually went from Qamishli to Aleppo, so he was born, and I think he stayed there for until he was, I'm gonna say 11, but I'm not entirely sure. Somewhere around that age. So yeah, he stayed there, and like he was kind of born and raised until that age range, and he then left to work in different places, Kuwait, England actually, for some time. Yeah.
What was his work?
He Tornoji, like he, yeah, he was a mechanic.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, he that's kind of their story from that end. Then he settled in Aleppo and started his business, and things went on to be great for him. So that's the whole dad side of the story, survival story. And from my mother's side, starting with my grandpa, so my mom's dad. He only remembers that he's been told that his father and his mother have been from Urfa. I'm sorry, from Antab. Antab. My grandma's side is from Urfa. So from Antab, and they've both been from Antab, but they haven't known each other in Antab, and they both migrated from Antab to Aleppo directly. And they met each other there, and then they had my grandpa. So.
Do you know how they met?
Not exactly, no, but there's a bit of a detail there My grandpa's from my mom's side. My grandpa's father was married before in Aintab, and his mother was married as well in Aintab, and because they didn't know each other, right? And they both had kids, like from other marriages. And when they came back, this is what he's told us, that they suspect that the like spouses either were did not survive, or were like, you know, something happened to them on their way to Syria. So we're not sure what the details are there. But yeah, so when they went to Aleppo, that's when they met. Not sure how. They got married. They had my grandpa and his other siblings from that single marriage. And and yeah, so and then my grandpa again started working. Both my grandpas have been very hardworking men. So yeah, he started working very hard, and then he established his own business as well, and things again went on to be great for him as well. And that's his side of the story. And from my grandma's side, from my mom's side, or branch rather, what we know is we see that we're a fourth generation survivor from my grandpa's side, from my mom's, and from my grandma's side, we're a fifth generation survivor again. So there's the mix kind of showing up there as well. So what we know is my grandma's family was from Urfa. A close town, a village close to Urfa, actually, not in Urfa in specific. Uh, Garmuch, I think. I hope I got the name right. I am sorry if I didn't.
So near Urfa.
Yeah, so very near Urfa. You can say it's in Urfa for sure. So that's where they came from, and they then went to another village in Syria. So from Urfa to another village in Syria, not Aleppo. I think she said. Okay, I don't remember the name, but we Googled it and tried to find the town in Syria, but couldn't find it. It has a kind of a close name, like another village has a kind of a close name to it, which is in Turkey right now, and we're not sure if it's right, so I don't want to say anything wrong there. So from Urfa to another village in Syria, and then to Aleppo, her grandparents were survivors, and not her parents. So that's where the again fifth generation survivor kind of discourse is there, and we don't have anything quote unquote significant story there. That's all I know from that side. Do I have anything else to mention? I do not think so.
How did you learn all these stories? Who passed these down? How did you?
Okay, that's a very good question, because I myself have not been interested in these questions until a while ago, because my brother is kind of I don't know how we say it, a historian when it comes to things like this.
Okay.
He really likes like history and the whole family tree, where we've come from, and all that. And he's also older than me, so he kind of evolved much sooner than I did. And yeah, so he was very interested in these questions, and I remember it was, I think 2018, if I'm not mistaken, the first time, or 2019, when we were in. So we used to live in Lebanon, me and my brother, and that's my grandma my grandma from my dad's side visited us in Lebanon, and he started asking these questions, and that's how it started. He has the recordings of them as well. Yeah, he's amazing when it comes to things like this. Yeah, so he has the recordings. He spoke to my grandma. That's how we know that enticing story, an interesting story there, and well, my grandpa, like he has a habit of like bringing in stories from his past and just passing them on to us. So from my dad's side, that's how we know his story, and from my mom's side, my brother also sat with our grandpa, and he like kind of spoke spoke to him about this, and yeah, he recorded that as well. Yeah, so he has those as well, and my grandma from my mom's side, I think it was just a family gathering, and then we just kind of yeah heard the stories and spoke about them. So yeah.
You said you lived in Lebanon. What were you doing there? When were you in Lebanon?
So from Syria. Okay. You'll probably have questions about all of this. We can go through them afterwards. So we were in Syria. Like I was born in Syria and then raised, of course, until I was 12 years old. Then we moved to Armenia because of the war, obviously.
When was that? What year was that you moved to Armenia?
2012. Yeah, so 2012, we moved to Armenia. We lived here for 3 years. Everything was going great, but then we had to move to Lebanon in 2015 because of my dad's work. Like we still had our business in Syria, so we had to like go back and forth. And Lebanon was obviously a better choice because like it's a neighboring country, so he can go by car, and yeah, so we did that for close to I personally was there for close to 5 years, and then moved back to Armenia here in 2020, just before it went into full lockdown,
Okay.
March 14, and yeah, so that's my side of the story of it. And my family is still in Lebanon. I mean, my dad and his family. So because my dad and my mom got divorced early on, so my dad. Well, I say my dad's family; they're my family as well. Don't want anyone to get a wrong picture there. So my family is still in Lebanon. There, my mom is in Sweden. My mom's family is in Armenia, and my dad's family is still in Armenia as well. My grandparents, I mean. So yeah. Well,
Okay.
did I answer your question?
Yeah. I was
Okay.
asking about Lebanon, so I think
Yeah.
I have an understanding.
Yeah.
For sure. I wanted to go back just a little bit. Earlier you said before you didn't have such an interest, but then it shifted a bit.
Yes.
Did you say that? Can you tell me a little bit about what happened? What was that shift like for you?
Sure. So it's when my brother started asking these questions, and you know when you're, I probably was 18 at the time, and when you kind of feel like you're becoming an adult and you have to, you know, get to know everything in life and enjoy all the adventures. A part of it is going back to your history and knowing what has happened and why you're here. And I think that's the base of my interests, I would say. But definitely my brother was a catalyzer to that for sure. So yeah, that's just a basic interest of wanting to know what happened and how we got here, and if there's any you know, interesting stories to tell or to hear.
Do you feel like your experience has changed now that you know these stories? It's okay if not.
No. I wanna give an honest answer. That's why I'm thinking about it.
Okay, no rush.
I mean, it adds a perspective, for sure, definitely. But I wouldn't say it has changed much, because like growing up in Armenian, you're gonna hear the stories, whether from your own family or from other families. sorry, and we're just like these stories are all around us, and not only specific stories of how like people got separated, families got separated, or stuff like that. It's just uh, like the whole genocide kind of. I don't know what words to use here. The I don't know, just the whole genocide is a big thing for us, you know.
You were
And
making a shape like it's around something.
I don't know if that was maybe subconsciously. Yeah, it's because I kind of feel like it's my view on how we've been taught our Armenian history and culture in Syria or in diaspora in like usually not in just Syria, because I've heard the same stories from Lebanon as well from my friends, is that we're almost put in a bubble in a sense, you know. It's this bubble of Armenia is the most beautiful place you'll ever see and you'll ever get to live in. And also, we've been affected by the genocide. This is our cause, and almost to an extent, again, this is my like view and my own experience. I'm pretty sure people have different experiences on like, you know, in different places, in different families, and you know, so this is definitely not I'm not trying to impose a whole view on anyone, but my experience of it was like, this is like the genocide is our only cause, kind of, you know. And if you're not involved in this, like something's wrong with you, you know. Not in something wrong in you as a person, but like you're not as Armenian as you should be, in a sense. Like your Armenianness is somewhat lower to a person who's defending this cause. So maybe that's why I made that round shape when I was talking about the genocide and didn't have the word for it. So yeah, when you're kind of growing up in this genocide theory in a sense, then like it's been with you your whole life, you know. It's not when you find out about your own family stories that you like, it's an epiphany and you're like, oh wow, like I have to change something in my life. Well, at least it wasn't the case for me, because I've heard a lot of those stories, heard a lot of different views on this, and it would just add another perspective. That's my long answer, unfortunately.
Thank you for sharing. No, it's great. So you're talking about growing up and how this is a big thing. Did you have any commemoration celebrations, or celebration isn't the right word? Did you commemorate the genocide in a particular way growing up?
Definitely. Every year, for sure. And I have to note here that my grandpa from my dad's side has and still is like a huge patriot, and he's a patriotic person, and he's just like his love for Armenia is something else. I really think it's there's something unique there, and so like growing up in our house. Not that it wasn't only like, okay, we have to. I don't want to use the word stupid, but it wasn't just like trivial stuff of, okay, we have to speak only Armenian, or you know, not only that kind of stuff. And we didn't really have those rules in the house, because we already spoke Armenian when like it was the norm, you know. No one tried to even speak anything else. But my grandpa kind of, and through my dad as well, they've tried to instill this different kind of love for Armenia, which I think has played a role in my life, and still does. which is we're not really like trying to hold on to the past. We 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 know, we acknowledge what has happened to us, and it's a tragedy for sure, and we acknowledge it, and that's why we, as you said, commemorate like the genocide day and everything that comes with it every year. Whether it's through our own family, whether it's through scouts, whether it's through the organizations we've joined, so school, just like anywhere we've been involved in Armenian community. So other than that, it was just okay. We acknowledge all of this, but we have to have an like affirmative and effective action, in a sense, towards Armenia and towards trying to create a better place for us in Armenia as well. And that's why he kind of started investing in Armenia pretty early. Like he was devoted to the whole cause of Armenia, not just to genocide. To make the distinction here, like he's been involved in a lot of committees and all sorts of formal like meetings and projects and things to do here in Armenia, and he's I think they moved to Armenia in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I'm getting that right. If not, like his initial investment was early 2000s. So like his personal investment, as in monetary investment, was early 2000s. That's how much he kind of believed and wanted to have Armenia be great. I'm pretty sure he's not the only one and not the first one, definitely, but one of the few ones, I think. To do that early on, and we've had that connection in a sense to Armenia as a whole, and not just a genocide cause. And yeah, of course, we've commemorated it every year, as I said, with school, with organizations, with at home, just and not just a genocide. Every single holiday, every single event, Armenian event, is like we've been in it in some way, in some sort, in our home or outside of home.
Great.
In Aleppo, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about specifically growing up in Syria? You know, what was your neighborhood like? Who were your friends? You know, what activities did you get up to?
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, I don't remember my early days as a human, but as far back as I can remember, I've been involved in all sorts of activities, which were in different Armenian organizations or I don't know, associations. So Armenian school for sure. I've been to well, since kindergarten. Before kindergarten as well. I've been to daycare centers, Armenian daycare centers. Don't remember the names. I'm sorry. I'm sure they've had an impact on me. I'm sorry, I don't remember your names, guys. So yeah, since kindergarten I've been to Gulbenkian school, and that was till 6th grade. And from 6th grade I transferred to, because that was the highest level they had in Gulbenkian, at Gulbenkian, and then I transferred to Cemaran, Markarian Cemaran, and I did my 7th grade there, and then we had to move to Armenia because of the war. So that's school-wise, and in terms of activities, probably starting 6 years old, which makes me 1st grade. I've been involved in dancing. So like Armenian dance classes at Shushi Barahum, and what else? Basketball, soccer, football, however you want to call it. and these were at Home and Pen, the club. What else have I done? I've been to a lot of institutes, language institutes, learned English, French. What else? Arabic. I had like we've learned Arabic in school. I've always been bad at Arabic until I arrived in Lebanon. And then that kind of that situation changed. And that was because like we didn't have any contact with, which like brings us to the friends kind of aspect of it. We didn't have any contact with the, with Arab compatriots.
Non-Armenian.
Yeah. Just, I mean, we lived in like on Villat Street, and
Is that in Markarian
no, it's Villat.
or? Okay.
Yeah, just I don't know if it's very close to Suleimaniye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we were on Villa Street, and we had the Spidag club. I don't know if you can call it a club. So that was the center, actually. I think is a better word for it. So the Spidag Center was very close to us, and Hometmen, the club was not too far away. Again, my schools like all were kind of close to the area, and Villat is kind of known to be all Christian, and I don't want to say mostly Armenian, but there's there were a lot of Armenians living in Villat Street, around Villat Street, and the Villat neighborhood as a whole, and. So yeah, my like the usual community exposure was to Armenians only, kind of. I always say this as a joke, but it kind of reflects the reality of the situation. Is that whenever they ask like, okay, what was it like growing up in Aleppo, like community-wise, Armenia, Syria, blah blah blah. I always go. I've always been in an Armenian community, and the only time I'd have to use Arabic was when I went into a market when I was a kid, and I would just say, by the way, we had a market that we went to, also an Armenian guy. So, yeah. So the only exposure I had to basically Arabic as a language was when I used to go to a market. I was like, "Badi wahed chocolate," just one chocolate, please. So that's the only exposure I had to Arabic. But the Arab culture as a whole, I've had exposure to. I think probably. A lot more than other families. That's thanks to my dad, because he's also kind of I don't want to say a geek, but he loves this like cultural and historical backgrounds of all peoples, and he used to take us to I don't know, day trips to different parts of Syria. We visited citadels, castles, get to know the history of the Arabs and Syrians in particular, and yeah, just all sorts of like cultural excursions, if you may, with my dad, and. So yeah, so that's how I've been exposed to or introduced to the Arab culture, but haven't had any Arab friends or Syrian friends for that matter.
Do you remember as a kid either having the feelings yourself or hearing them expressed in your family about non-Armenian people that you were living near?
No, they love them. Yeah, they love them. Like till this day, I hear my grandpa saying like the Syrian Muslims in specific are like great people. Like he just loves them, and I mean we can't deny their hospitality, and this is something I'm sure probably everyone has mentioned, and just their like open arms kind of approach to us, whether it's from the like from the genocide, starting with the genocide and having us stay there and living kind of peacefully, coexisting peacefully with us, because we owe that to them, and it's, I mean, to us as well. That's for sure, but mostly to them. And so yeah, and in terms of business as well, in terms of our family, to like in specific, they've been like great. I cannot complain one bit.
Great. And so you said that your dad, does he still have this business in Serbia?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And he's going back to school now?
Well, not as much, but he does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. And you said, so when you were leaving, you were 12, is that?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about, do you remember when you were 10 or 11, do you remember feeling that there was any change happening or noticing things?
So I'm assuming that's a political question, kind
No,
of.
or no, just about, was there anything going on? I mean, did you walk down the street and see a protest, or did you hear things on the news, or did it feel like things were all normal until they weren't? What was that like for you?
Yeah, sure. So I remember a couple of things pretty vividly, I would say. I remember hearing like everyone kind of talking about what was going on in the country, and it's like, okay, oh, the protests are have arrived to Syria. I didn't know what that meant back then, because like I didn't know what the Arab Spring was. They would call it the Rabi al Arabi, and now it's in Syria and blah blah blah, and I didn't know what that meant, but I knew everyone was talking about it, and that's like it has arrived to Syria. It kind of was a big deal. I remember that, and kind of in sync with that is I remember seeing on the TV a piece of news where they kind of showed a huge crowd. I think the name of the square was Sadal al-Jabri. So in Sadal al-Jabri, they had like, there was a huge crowd supporting Bashar al-Assad, not like protesting against, with like Syrian flags and just Bashar. So I remember seeing that on TV, and I was like, okay, we're safe, right? Like, okay, like there are protests, but you can see like everyone supporting Bashar. Again, as a kid, you don't understand much. So yeah, so that's, I remember that like I can still see the image of the news and piece in front of me. But other than that, I remember one time I remember one time we had a private tutor at home, and she I remember her telling us that there was a shooting near their house, because she lived near to a military base of the Syrian government, and so a couple of I don't know who they were, a group, let's say, kind of attacked the base, and there was a shooting there, confrontation, and yeah, I remember that she, like, her telling us that story, and I was like, that's close to us. That's very near, that's like a couple of neighborhoods away, and so yeah, that had like a kind of an impact on me as well, and then the crescendo, if you may, was with the first explosion in Aleppo, and yeah, well, like I was in school in class, the explosion went off, and okay, this is what I remember from that day. I think it was, okay, I'm giving too many details probably, but third class of the day, and we heard the explosion, like it was we heard the sound, like, and we're like, okay. And a few seconds later, the windows popped open, and like everyone was crying. It was like chaos all over, and just the whole school was started just. It turned into a mess, obviously. Parents were coming to pick us up. Like they were trying to open the school door. They didn't let them, and just chaotic in every sense of the word. And yeah, then I think I was on the way back home that day when my dad came to pick us up from the school, because my brother was in that school as well. And this is Karanya Pejamaran, by the way, 7th grade. And so yeah, he told us on the way back. It was like this, like, we're done with Syria. We're leaving. And fortunately, it was easier for us, for our family, saying that, and having the ability to take that move, to take that step, because we already had our grandpa, my dad, from my dad's side, already settling in Armenia, and like they kind of knew everything here, so like we had no problem moving here. We had a home, we had everything, so fortunately, yes, we were kind of prepared in a sense. So yeah, that was the decision, and June 5, 2012, we moved to Armenia. That's it.
How did you come to Armenia? Did you go through Lebanon? Did you?
No, just a direct flight. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you said you have a brother. Do you have other siblings?
Well, I have siblings from my dad's new marriage. Yeah. 2 lovely little brothers.
Oh, nice. Okay. So you and your brother are in your car going home, or you're with your dad going home. Did you or your brother or anyone in your family have any resistance to what your dad had just decided?
No. But also another important factor here was so we cut ties with my mom's side, so we didn't have like we wouldn't know if there would have been any resistance from their side, So well, not completely cutting ties, but it was like just kind of the whole custody situation, and very little exposure to that side, and so again, I wouldn't know if there would have been any resistance from that side, but from my dad's side, my grandparents were already here in Armenia, and my aunt's family was here as well, because they moved in 2010 or earlier, something like that. So they were like, okay, like you have to come, it's the time. That was.
And what was that transition like? So you're 7th grader, and you come to Armenia, and your brother's older.
Yeah.
What kind of adjustments did you have to make? How were you feeling?
I always feel lucky, because I think my transition was a lot easier again, compared to other friends, and compared to even to my own brother, my older brother, of course. We moved, and he was 11th grade. Like he finished 11th grade, and then we moved. So he only had like 12th grade, and in Syria you had the baccalaureate, and you had to prepare for that and everything. And he was like just taken off from everything, and placed here. In like 12th grade in Armenia, like you barely know how to speak Eastern Armenian. Not barely, you do not know how to speak Eastern Armenian, and like you have to survive a year of just trying to, because it's not gonna affect you in any way, like if you learn all the words of Armenian biology, or all the words biological words in Armenian to kind of like participate in class and have a good grade, like how's that gonna help you if after you're gonna graduate and go to the AUA, you know, because he did go to AUA and in English, everything's in English, so it's like just a total waste of a year. Was that was the conviction back then for him and for us as well.
So young.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I was young, and so this. I was trying to make a comparison here. I was young, and when you're young, you're like more adaptive, and you know, it's just much easier. Not for everyone, for of course, but yeah, I was. I finished seventh grade, and I. So I got enrolled in yeah, school number 71. Yeah, so school number 71, and that was kind of where all the children or students my age were going to, the Syrian Armenian students, and so yeah, like we wanted to be with friends, and so yeah, that's why we chose number 71, and I went there. Obviously, it was difficult because we barely could understand what, like, you know, just Eastern Armenians. It was so weird. So yeah, it was difficult in that sense, and there's the other kind of aspect of it where, like, I've been like to, like, not to brag, like, but I've been top of my class like almost every year in Syria, all the way up to seventh grade, and like I've been in good, like, great academic standing, and switching to this and switching to like not knowing anything and not being able to know anything was difficult. This, like, not on the whole transitioning from one country to another, but yeah, just like feeling like you're inadequate to, you know, incapable of just performing as you normally do was kind of a bad feeling, but not the worst, definitely. So yeah, that was one thing I remember, and then. What happened was, you probably heard this again. They opened a Syrian system school here in Armenia, and like they used to teach them Arabic and with all the Arabic books that we had in Syria. So all my friends from the 71 school went to that school, and I was left alone in that school. I mean, that was a decision by my family, and they were like we're staying in Armenia, so just deal with it, you know. Like, you have to do this, otherwise it's it's much better for you to try to adapt and kind of yeah, mold with the culture. So yeah, so I was left alone, and I had to, like, there was no other choice than to befriend them and try to socialize and try to learn.
Did you feel like there was a big difference between you and Armenian-born Armenians?
Yes, I mean, I still do.
Yeah, really? Tell me about it.
It's no generalizations. I want to make that clear. But in our school, we had a couple of students, male students in specific, that were. I mean, we know the machismo culture that is prevalent here, existent in Armenia, but the whole kind of. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't have to think about this stuff back then, but I knew there was a difference between like Syria or the Syrian Armenian community in Syria, and here the Armenian-born Armenian community, because it's like I remember. Uh, I don't remember the guys having a stronger positioning in class in terms of like what goes on in a class and what doesn't in Syria, but I felt that in Armenia for sure. So that was like one of the differences I felt, and another thing was a lot of the again male students were like not it's, I mean it's pretty common for male students, I guess, again, not to generalize, not to care about academic endeavors, but it's in Syria it was like, okay, the people who didn't care, like did not care about like the academic sort of thing going on in school, but like generally I felt like they didn't want to cause anyone harm. Like it's just like they were there to have fun in school, you know. But they just didn't like studying. They just didn't like listening to the teacher. But in Armenia, it was like they're here. They don't want to study. They hate it. I have nothing against that. I completely understand it. But they like I remember them just trying to take advantage of us. And I know it's not just an Armenian and Syrian Armenian like thing, like Armenian vis-a-vis Syrian Armenian thing, because like it does with other fellow Armenian-born Armenians as well, and Armenia-born, rather, not Armenian-born. So yeah, it was like I remember like more than a dozen times they've asked us to give them money for them to go buy like booze, vodka in particular, and just cigarettes. And one time they like asked for money from my friend, and he was like guys, like I really don't want to, you know, like I've been seeing you like going and buying, you know, I just don't want to, you know, I need this money, and they like just start beating him. I arrived late, unfortunately, to the whole scene, but yeah, and I've never been a trouble guy, kid, never been into fights. But in Armenia, it was almost kind of inevitable, you know, and that's more understandable than any other thing, because like they see a new kind of community, a new kind of personality coming into their school, and they're like they want to reject it, or there's like the competition, the psychological competition. So that's understandable for sure. But yeah, that was again one of the more difficult parts. Being a male student is we have to mention that there.
How did your dad find the transition?
It was difficult for him because he was in again, like he liked his life in Syria, because like he was very much involved in the community, like he had his business, or the family business, and like everything was going great for him, you know. He knew a lot of people, he had a lot of friends, and moving here, it was just like all the Syrian Armenians are like they want to stick together, but like everyone has a whole package that they're carrying with them, and they have to like figure things out. So everyone's just kind of was at first in a more isolated situation for themselves, and he was kind of like left alone, and he had to go through his transition as well, of trying to befriend the local community here.
Did you have anyone helping you guys? Was there, I mean, were there organizations, or it was your family that was already here?
Well, I mean, my grandpa did help. I mean, by help, I mean, like he helped my dad kind of make new acquaintances, but not in the sense that like this is a great friend. Please, like stay with him or her. But
And did you always live with your grandpa when you first got here?
yes,
Or-
yeah. My dad arrived a little later, but yeah, that was the situation at first, and we had the YMCA, the Young Man's Christian Association for Syrian Armenians, which was very fun, and I'm really grateful for everyone who's organized that. My brother was one of them. Thank you. So yeah, so that helped us a lot. Of course, like gathering every Sunday because it's something we were used to in Syria, and so yeah, it was good, like nice, fun community where you can be yourself in a sense, be your Syrian Armenian self. Yeah, so.
Do you feel like that Syrian Armenian self is something that you're trying to preserve or want to preserve in your current life?
Not the Syrian Armenian self, but it is a part of me, and I like it can't be detached from my identity. But I would like to look at it as more of a diasporan identity rather than just a Syrian Armenian.
So do you see yourself more as, okay, so you label yourself as diaspora Armenian rather than Armenian or Syrian Armenian, or what kind of label do you like?
Well, usually when I get asked this question, I always say, like when they ask me where you're from, I always go, I'm an Armenian born in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my kind of
Gotcha.
yeah, definition of it.
Okay. So you moved here 2 different times, both
Yes.
recently
Yes.
and when you were a kid. Did either of those moves feel like coming to a homeland for you?
The first one, yes. Second one, not so much. First one because, like as I said, when we were in Syria, we've had this idea of Armenia being the glorious and majestic homeland.
And had you been to Armenia before?
I have been,
When
yeah,
you were-
yes. I think twice,
Okay.
yeah. But I don't remember like much from those visits. So yeah, but we had that idea of Armenia being the ultimate place to live, and but like we didn't know, at least I didn't know as a kid, that there was a difference between Eastern Armenians and Western Armenians. And that was pretty shocking. The culture shock was huge, because like I was so ready to move to a country where I would just go, love is, interest is, and then like you hear vonsis, like even though there's not much of it, like now it's no biggie at all, but yeah, it was obviously a culture shock at first. So yeah, that was definitely a return to the homeland, kind of a situation going on there. But the second time, okay, so I wouldn't say it was not a return to homeland, but because it's still my homeland, I still consider it as my homeland, but it was very much toned down because I already knew the reality of the situation. I've lived here before. I was familiar with everything, so it was just like, okay, I'm going back to Armenia.
Yeah. Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about your life in Lebanon in the interim?
Yes.
Just
How much do you want to know?
So you were here in Armenia, and then you went through school in Armenia?
Yes.
And then you went to Lebanon?
Yeah, so I went to school here from 8th grade to when I finished 10th grade, and then we moved to Lebanon, so I did 11th and 12th grade there. And then 3 years of university in Lebanon.
And do you feel more comfortable in Lebanon or Armenia? Or are they just different?
In terms of...
Do you feel more Armenian in either of the countries?
No. No.
Cool.
Yeah, but you're reminded of it much more in Lebanon because, again, because I was in university and like the whole the different discourses of identity and where you're from, and especially in Lebanon because they have this obsession of where you're from for their own understandable reasons, so yeah, it's always whenever you're meeting someone new, it's like, oh, where are you from? Like, I mean, Syria. When you say Syria and Lebanon, it's a bit of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm much more reminded of it in Lebanon.
Okay. And so now you finished university in Lebanon.
No, I graduated in a month.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are you studying?
Political science.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are your future plans to do with this political science?
Okay. So in the near future, I'm planning to do my master's. Hopefully in the States if I do get the visa, which my appointment time should be sent to me soon for this summer, and hopefully if I do get the visa, I'll be there in September and start my program. It's a public policy program, and we're specializing in nonprofit management. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm headed in the near future, and hopefully get some more experience from the States, whether it's through internships or from their OPT program that they have in the States. And so after I kind of gather a brief experience from the States, I do plan and hopefully would somewhere in the future come back here and will not come back here, establish something here, an NGO, and do some community development work.
Do you have an idea of what the focus would be?
I haven't still figured that. It is a long way off till I feel like I have the expertise to establish an NGO and lead it, but yeah, for now it's just community development as much as I can, as much as it's feasible, and if I do get to cover all aspects of community development, I'd be perfectly happy.
Fascinating. Okay. And in your future, do you ever see yourself in Syria again?
Definitely not.
Okay. And Lebanon?
No.
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 Okay. So it's Armenia for you. It sounds like.
Yep. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, don't want to sound. Don't want to give definite answers. But yeah, for now, that's what it looks like.
Okay. Great. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or anything that you can think of right now that we should already take out, or you can always contact us later?
No, I think I talked too much. I'm sorry, but
No, that's great.
no, that's all.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful.